take home, what were our take home points for our last night lesson? We are looking into wellness. Anyone would like to share one point, one thing that you say, okay, I've learned this, I've learned that, I learned that, or I was reminded about this or that from what we shared last night.
The mind controls the body.
Yes?
The mind controls the body.
Yeah, but the mind is designed to control the body, or the body is designed to be controlled by the mind. Just like the computer, the hardware is designed to be controlled by the software. So people who design the computer, they actually copied the same concept of the mind and the body. When they are designing these kind of gadgets, the Bill Gates and them, they are simply copied that concept. So the mind is actually the most powerful thing than the body, even though that mind is invisible. What else?
What you believe is more powerful than what you know.
Yes. In your mind, you have your conscious, your intelligence, you have knowledge, all the things that are there in your mind. You have also your emotions. But what you believe is actually more powerful than what you know. What you believe is more powerful than what you know, because the hierarchy of your mind is what you believe. That's why you find those Muslims who believe that if you kill a Christian, you go to heaven. They'll do it. Because they believe it, that if I kill this person, or if I become a suicide bomber and I die with so many non-Muslim people, then there's a place for me in heaven. They are able to do it. What you believe is more powerful than what you know. And when it comes to salvation, it's not much of the knowledge you have, but it's about believing. Like a thief on the cross, how many great controversies did he read? None. He did not read desire wages, he did not read anything. He just said, Lord, remember me in your kingdom. And Jesus said, verily, verily, I say unto you today, you will be with me in paradise. He only believed that Jesus was the Son of God. So what you believe is what will take you to heaven. Yes, what else?
Then alcohol can also influence whatever that you are eating, or whatever that you are doing, listening to, or you are seeing, can also influence the mind of something.
Yes, yes. What you listen, you watch can impact the mind, and that can also eventually impact the physical body. What else did we learn?
We learned that when you present your body as a living sacrifice, is when you have made up your mind because of your belief and following God, that the things that He's calling you to live, you live them even though the body does not understand them. Because the mind is convinced and believes, then the body has to obey the mind and live in those things even if it's painful.
That's very true, and there will be that pain of leaving something, because the craving will be there. I mean, all of us, when you were trying to stop, maybe when you made a decision how to stop eating this, the craving never disappeared. It was the decision that the mind made, but the body had to obey the mind at the end of the day. Yes, what else?
We learned that we should teach our minds to forgive. Because if we don't forgive, we start to have sort of toxins in our bodies.
Yes.
We can even die because of unforgiveness.
Yes, you start releasing hormones like cortisol and some of them just because you are holding on anger. So it is always beautiful to forgive for the sake of your own health. What else did we? Yes.
We said if you win in our mind, and also the body will win at the twinkling of an eye. And also you mentioned that the power is not about the knowledge that we have, it's about the belief that we have. So you mentioned that Jesus Christ do not ask people what you know. He asked them if they believe in them.
That is very true. So those are, I think, some of the highlights of what we shared yesterday. We decided to start there before touching more on the physical, because anything that we want to do at the physical level cannot happen unless it is done at the mind level, at the belief system level. This is why I don't agree with the people who say, no, the healthy message you have in the church is just for us to know how to drink 8 glasses of water, exercise, and to prevent disease. It has nothing to do with your salvation, because the salvation happens at your belief system. And the moment you don't believe that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, you actually lose the power to live the healthy message. Because you can only live it when you believe it. You understand that? Now, when the people, they want you to have the healthy message at the knowledge level, you know, you end up attending one seminar after another, but you still don't overcome anything. Because until you believe it, you have the power to live it. So the healthy message, in as much as it is based on knowledge, knowing what to do, how to cook, how to prepare, how to live healthy, you must also believe that you are assured. Your body is the temple of God. And God is expecting you to take care of that body temple. That's what will give you the power to say no when you're at the wedding and the fizzy drinks are circulating, and you'll be happy just to have a glass of water. Because what you believe is more powerful than what is being distributed on the wedding. You see, it is that faith that will help you, that when you go for potluck lunch at church and there are hundreds of dishes, you know, and there are all kinds of cakes at the end, like what I saw at one of the churches I used to attend. You know, when there is a potluck lunch, you have from that corner to that corner cakes, different type of cakes and ice creams. And you wonder, should I just have a Sabbath as a delight, only for today? But you know, what you believe will allow you to do a Passover on those tables. And then you go for salads. But you have seen what happens, how people eat, you know, when it is time to eat, especially those cakes. Even at the funeral, you know, they will make sure they kill all the cakes that are there. We consume too much of the bad things when we don't believe our bodies are the temple of God. So I want to go a little bit on the physical now. In 2009, I was attending the workshop, not 2009, sorry, 2006. I was in Port Elizabeth. We were attending a conference on nutrition. It was South African International Nutritional Conference. So I just wanted to go and see what these professors talk about. And different professors were standing talking about the research that they have done at this and that and that and that and that and that and that. And I remember one professor stood up in his presentation. He said, by 2017, this was 2006, we are going to have in this side of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, more people dying from diabetes, high blood pressure, and cancer, more than those who are dying from HIV/AIDS. Now, he was explaining based on the research that he did. I can't remember, it was from Stellenbosch or UCT, I can't remember. They said he observed that the lifestyles of a lot of Africans from the sub-Saharan Africa, not only South Africa, Botswana, Swaziland, Zambia, Malawi, the way people used to live in the past is actually changing. We are becoming more and more modernized, especially with the African people. So we are consuming more KFC than we used to. We are eating oranges and apples and the way the traditional food that the people were eating in the past. Maybe in the time back they found that more Africans were actually walking. They were walking, going to work, walking, going there, walking. Now everybody is driving. The majority are driving, or at least public transport has become more convenient that walking is now looking like a sin. So he also said that people are now consuming so much of the fizzy drinks and so much of the refined flour products than ever before. And he was talking of all these cakes that we eat everywhere, things that are made of white flour, that are just plenty. And he was actually explaining that refined food, refined things that are made from refined flours, cakes, biscuits, whatever, they have got the highest risk of messing up your metabolism more than the animal products. Meaning that you can be a vegetarian, but what you're having is pasta and macaroni and white rice and the chips and the eels, and they say, but I don't eat meat. But those refined grains, they do more harm to the system more than the beef and the chicken. This is why when you read the book Counsels on Diet and Food, it says whole grains, nuts, seeds, fruits, and vegetables, they make a wholesome diet for man. Whole grains. And then he was also saying that even for most African people, life has now started becoming very stressful. Before Africans were living a very simple life, easy life. They walk slowly, going nowhere. They'll eat and chat and laugh and dance. And now they find that life is becoming so busy because everybody wants to live a top-building lifestyle, isn't it? So you start, as you're trying to chase the rand, you end up working 24/7. So life is becoming so busy. And he was also, what else did he mention? He said that drinking alcohol has now become even more common, especially among the ladies. He was saying that in Africa, in the past, drinking was more like a habit of men, isn't it? The men would be gathering somewhere drinking umkombot, yeah? But now it happened that they're saying that now it is like looking more modern to see ladies having red wine, this and that. It looks more fashionable. When you are a woman and you know the names of alcohol, you look more civilized. People can see that, oh, you once lived in London, isn't it? Yeah. You look more civilized, you look more educated, you look like you're up there because you know the names of alcohol. While in the olden days, it was mostly men. It was more like a habit of men, The women could brew that in Komboti, but they never really got drunk with it. They were just selling it to crazy men. But now everybody's going crazy. And they actually discovered that when women are taking alcohol, the risk of them getting breast cancer or ovarian cancer actually goes like that. Because when they're doing that, most of the women who are doing that, they are also at the same childbearing age, meaning that they're using contraceptive pills. So when you combine these hormonal contraceptive pills with alcohol, It's like applying fertilizer in a spinach garden, so the spinach grows faster. And this spinach, I think, of cancer now. And that's actually what happened. So I remember we listened to the presentation, you know, we go for break, we ate the snacks, and we had the lunch, and I forgot about it. Until when we are approaching 2020, in Malawi, not even here in South Africa, I saw now the cases of cancer just going like this. And I saw diabetes now is killing more people. We don't hear much about HIV/AIDS anymore. You know, people are just now dying with heart attacks. Then my mind went back to 2006. By the way, that time when I was in PE, this professor spoke about this. But by 2017, we are going to have more people dying from diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, and more than those who are dying from HIV/AIDS. You know, then it was just like a story, because in 2006, the most feared disease that time was what? HIV/AIDS. You know what? Everybody was scared to hear a doctor saying you are HIV positive. You know, it was like the most dangerous disease you could ever have. But if you have observed now, people who are HIV positive today, maybe they are on treatment and they are taking care of themselves, whether it's the natural way or the conventional way. They are living, they are surviving, they are seeing their daughters getting married. But those who are HIV negative, heart attack, they are gone. Cancer, they are gone. Diabetes, they are gone. They are leaving those who are HIV positive still what? Kicking, still alive. And they are seeing their grandchildren. Something has gone wrong. Can we read our Bibles? 3 John verse 2. 3 John, the book of John, closer to the book of Revelation. You have 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John. 3 John verse 2, verse 2. It's just one chapter. The book is just one chapter. So that's why I'm not saying chapter 1, because it's just, the book is just in one chapter. 3 John verse 2.
Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers.
You see, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in what? Be in good health, just as your soul prospers. You know, if you read the first books of John, 1 John and 2 John, you know, John was saying, you know, beloved, I'm glad you're growing in grace. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad you're doing that. He said so many things. But then on the last chapter, is saying, above all that, I pray that you may prosper in all things. And I know all of us would love to prosper, you know, in everything that we're doing. Whether it's in ministry, whether it's in industry, whether it's in home education, we want to prosper. But then he said, and be in what? And be in health. You see, I have learned in my life as a medical missionary for the past years that of all the blessings we have in this temporary life, nothing can surpass good health. You can enjoy the little things you have in this life only when you have a measure of good health. Even when you are staying in Mukuku, but you have good health, you are going to have a sound sleep. But you cannot enjoy good sleep in a mansion when you have arthritis and you have inflammation everywhere. You see, you can enjoy a bicycle when you have good health. But you cannot enjoy driving a C-Class Mercedes-Benz, you know, when you are in pain, when you are sick. You can enjoy eating, you know, spinach without tomato, without onion, without oil. Just spinach with salt when you are in good health. You can't enjoy fried chicken when you are sick. You have seen people vomiting nice food, isn't it? Because good health is treasure. That many people don't appreciate it until the day they lose it. The Chinese have a proverb, they say, a healthy poor man is half a billionaire. Meaning that when you are healthy, when you are in good health, you already have $500 million in your account. So you can now add the R5 you have in your wallet to that $500 million. Then you know how rich you are. Because money is nothing when good health is missing. In my life as a practitioner, I have seen people selling cars so that they can get money to go to India to get medical help. Because when you are sick, you can't buy a car anymore. I have seen people selling clothes so that they can have money to go to Belgium to get medical help. Because when you are sick, even a piece of blood doesn't mean anything anymore, especially when your life is under threat. When you can see that this disease can actually take my life, anything else loses value. You are willing to pay any amount of money. When you think you're in good health, that's when you say, oh, almonds are expensive. Let me just eat my biscuits. This healthy reform life is very expensive when you think you're in good health. But when you are sick, you are willing to buy anything. Where you get money, you don't even know. I have seen it when people are desperate for their health, they will do anything. They will not even question anything. Why you say I shouldn't eat this? Because they are what? They are sick. People who ask questions, hey, if I stop eating this, where will I get vitamin this and vitamin that? It's because they think they're in good what? In good health. But when you are sick, if a doctor says don't eat anything with the salt, you go home and throw away all the salt. Because now you are afraid of your own life. So when you're talking about investment, it's good to invest in land. It's good to invest in education, true education in our case. It is good also to invest in our spiritual growth, and it is also very important that we invest in our own health. Now that does not mean that when you live a healthy lifestyle, you never die. It is written for you to die what? Once. After that, judgment. How long you live, it is God's grace. But you can choose how healthy you want to live. God has given us that responsibility to take care of the body temple. Because it is possible to live 70 years but live a single life without being productive. You can live all the way to 85 years but not living a productive life, just a sick person moving from one hospital to another for so many years. But by taking care of the body temple, it means if God has given you 40 years to live a productive life in those 40 years, a healthy, productive life, that you can be glad of what you have done for the Lord for the years that He gave you in this life. So the purpose of health reform is not to extend your life. You cannot extend your life. There are many things that are killing us these days. You can die on the road. Many things can eliminate your life if God allows. You are not trying to beg for 2 more years to live. You just want to glorify God in your body. And if God allows you to live longer, you live a healthy life. I remember the other day I decided to visit the church in Soweto, and there was a man who was 94 years old. He was giving a Bible study. He was standing in front and speaking with energy. And he said he had started the health reform message in the 1940s. I was like, wow, the health message has done justice to him. Because at that age, I could not believe someone could stand in front for 2 hours and give a powerful Bible study at the age of 94. I don't know he died at what age, but I was just amazed to see him. And you cannot even think he was that old unless he tells you. He had said, oh, we sent this earthly message in the 1940s. This father was a pastor. So I admire that older generation. And the principle is taking care of God's temple. So, for example, let's look at one thing that is becoming a problem today. Like the disease like diabetes. I am concerned and touched that even you find many, when I was really starting my nutritional therapy journey in 2005, 2004, 2005, diabetes was more like a disease of the older people. People who have consumed enough Coca-Cola. But today you find that teenagers are having diabetes type 2. People in their early 20s are having diabetes type 2. And you wonder what is going on, what is happening there. But if you observe, you can also understand why. Because the older generation never had much access to junk food during younger years. It was more of the natural things. Yes, they were snacking, but they were snacking more of the things from the garden. But as time went by, junk food became more accessible, more cheaper, more available. Every corner of the street, someone is selling some junk. So you find that the children are now growing in that kind of environment where junk looks like food, food looks like a luxury. And this is what happens with diabetes. You see, the way God created us. Psalms 139 verse 14 says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. We have this body which is fearfully and wonderfully made. When the body is designed to produce energy from glucose. So what happens when you eat? When you eat your food, you eat potatoes, you eat rice, you eat pap, whatever you eat, anything that has starch in it. When you digest it, the body is going to convert that starch into glucose. And in the second part of your small intestine, you absorb that glucose, it goes into your liver. The liver is when you are going down this right rib, at the very end here, that's where it is. That's why when you go to the hospital, sometimes you find that the doctors or the nurses will be squeezing here when they're doing the physical exam. When they squeeze here and you go like, then they know that something is not right. Because the liver is flexible, you can squeeze it and without feeling any pain. But the moment you feel the pain, they know that something, they need to do further investigation. And when the glucose has gone to the liver is like the project manager, it's a distribution center. It takes all this, everything that has been digested, and it has to be distributed to the rest of the body where it is needed. But now for this glucose that you got from the chips, from the rice, from the bread, from whatever, in order for that glucose to give you energy, it must go inside your cells. Now, inside your cells, you've got something called mitochondria. Mitochondria functions the same way like the power station that makes electricity. So in every cell in your body, you have a power station. That's how fearfully and wonderfully we are made. It actually converts this glucose, after combining it with iron and other minerals, it will convert it into energy, into ATP. So because of that energy that is produced inside your cell, inside the mitochondria, you are able to blink your eyes, you are able to talk, you are able to breathe, your heart can beat, you can do anything, you can think. Without that happening, the brain can just shut down and you die. This is why low glucose is more dangerous than what? High glucose. That's why if you go to the hospital, they check your sugar and it's so low, they're going to give you a drip of glucose immediately. Because if the glucose goes so low, your brain can shut it down and the heart can stop beating. Because this body is designed to function on glucose. So you wonder now that if glucose is such a good thing, what makes it so bad that it now becomes a disease called diabetes? Because it is the fuel we actually depend upon. You cannot function without glucose. For that glucose to reach these cells that you're talking about, if there is a if there's a Korea company that actually does that, it's called insulin. So it takes this glucose, from the blood system, from the liver, inside the mitochondria where it is actually needed. It's like a transport officer, so that's all that it does. And that's actually how then you end up with coming up with the byproducts after the energy production. The carbon needs to come out. That's why you have to breathe out carbon dioxide, because every time the body is producing energy. Now, so what makes the good glucose become bad? This is what happens. According to the wisdom of creation, when God created man, He placed him in the garden to take care of it. And that was for two reasons: of course, stewardship, character building, and also to burn the glucose. So the body that we have, it is designed to be physically active. We were never created to sit in the office and work on the laptop. We were designed to work in the farm there. So that when I eat that breakfast, I can go there and start burning the what? The breakfast. When I eat my lunch, I go there and I burn the lunch. But you find that for most people, the only exercise they do is taking carrying the fork and the knife on the mouth. That's the only exercise they do. So when you don't burn this glucose, for example, you have seen it, maybe I think I'm not the only one who have seen that. You wake up in the morning, you have this wonderful South African breakfast. You have bread, margarine, and jam, and chips, and scrambled eggs, and sausages or boros. What else do you have there? Rations. And all those cheese, yes. So that's a Sunday, it sounds like a Sunday breakfast when you have the time to do it. So you have this kind of breakfast and you feed yourself so well. It's like you are filling the tank. So the body says, oh, we are walking to Cape Town today. We have too much glucose. So if the tank is full, it means you are going for a big walk. But what happens after that? You sit down and start watching the soapies you missed last night. And then you start watching this, and maybe you're a good Christian, you don't watch soapies, you're just watching the sermons. Still destroying your health. And after doing that, 10 o'clock, you remember that there's some magwinya in the fridge. And then you also remember that, there's something, there's some pizza you made last night, a small piece was left, so you just snack. It's not a meal, it's just a snack. You are still putting fuel in the car, but this vehicle is going nowhere. Then lunch time has come. You want to eat lunch. So it's half one big plate, half white rice, half beef. And I've seen people eating like that. They eat meat as if they have been sent by the government to go and eat meat. I even get traumatized when I see those kind of portions. But even the time when I was eating meat, I was not eating it like that. So I have seen it, and you have also seen it. And then they conclude that lunch with a bottle of Coca-Cola. That 2-liter bottle, and 3 people they share it. It's a glass, and it's another glass. 1 liter is gone. More glucose in the body, but the vehicle is just parking, it's not going anywhere. And if it's these guys who work in the offices, you know, 3 o'clock, they go into whatever, they take it's another cup of coffee, maybe with some biscuit. It's a snack, it's at work, they have to take some coffee. Everybody's drinking coffee, so I also need to take coffee. And after that cup of coffee, 4:30, 5 o'clock, they go home. And they also be given some refreshments. You know, it's not the supper, it's just welcome home, daddy. So the good wife, a good loving wife, will bring some refreshments, you know, just to welcome daddy home. But those refreshments are all full of glucose. So the dad is sitting there now watching BBC or watching whatever, or watching a sermon. 9 p.m. now the real thing comes. And unfortunately you have heard that the night is long, so you want to eat more in the night so that you don't collapse in the middle of the night. So this is the time now we have the mountain of pap with enough of everything that can help you last the longer night. But the car is going to be packed in bed, and yet you are putting a lot of fuel when the vehicle is going nowhere. And now it's World Cup, they are watching World Cup. It means after the supper, then they have got popcorn, they have got nuts, and some juices. By the time the game is over, everything is over here. Everything has disappeared into the stomach. So you live like that, you know, first year, second year, third year. Now, as we have said, you know, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. At the beginning, the body is going to help you, you know, using its metabolic system. It's going to help you to save your life. So you may end up excreting those excess glucose through the urine that the body doesn't need. The body may also try to convert some of this excess glucose into fat, and that's how we gain weight. But it reaches a point where now this glucose is saturated in the cells, and the cells have a mechanism of protecting themselves. They close all the doors that insulin uses to dump the glucose inside the cell. So that next time you eat your amazambani again, you digest them, and then they go into the insulin will carry them, the glucose to the cell. The cells will say, no, we don't need any more glucose. We have too much here, we don't know what to do with it. The hospital language, they call it insulin resistant, meaning that the cells are telling the insulin, go back with your sugar, we don't need it anymore. We have too much here, we don't know what to do with it. So when that has happened, you are going to have glucose accumulating in your blood circulation system, your blood vessels. Now, according to the wisdom of creation, glucose is not supposed to stay in the circulation system, in the blood vessels. It is supposed just to move from the liver to the cells into the mitochondria, using the blood as a passage, as a freeway. They are not supposed to park there, just like here in the traffic system. You are not allowed to park your car in the middle of the freeway, isn't it? You can cause a major accident, isn't it? And that's what happens. So when talking about diabetes, you are talking about glucose that is busy parking in the freeway. Because it is not supposed to stay there, it's supposed just to drive through and go to its destination. But the moment the glucose started parking in the freeway, that's where now the disease comes in. That's where the accidents are now caused. Because when the glucose is parking there, when it is accumulating in the circulation system, it can actually damage the eyes. That's why diabetic people, they become blind. It damages some of the nervous system, and that's why diabetic people can have gangrene and they end up going for amputation. It can damage some blood vessels in the brain. That's why diabetic people can have a stroke and they end up not using certain parts of your body. If you divide your brain into two parts like this part of the brain, it controls this side of your body, and this part of your brain controls this side of the body. So when something has happened here, you paralyze this side. So this part will be functioning very well, but you'll be dragging the other side. And then eventually kidneys can also get damaged. And people who are diabetes is a very dangerous disease because you don't die suddenly, you degenerate. That's why they're also called degenerative diseases. So the excess blood sugar will just be damaging the organ. So you are actually busy dying, but you are dying on installment plan. You are dying slowly. So the eyes are gone, one hand goes to the grave, another hand goes to the grave, amputated. So you are going to the grave in bits and pieces. It is actually the most painful way to die. Or kidneys are dead, and it's actually a dying process, but it kills you slowly. That's what makes diabetes very dangerous. And yet it is caused by what? It is caused when there is too much glucose in the body, but you are burning so little. That's what causes diabetes type 2. Too much of the petrol, but no motion. That's why, according to the wisdom of creation, you are supposed to eat food that is high in fiber, high in this and high in that. The whole idea that you consume food that has less glucose, which can match the physical activities that you are doing. So when you are eating the brown rice, the whole wheat bread, the sorghum and the millet and whatever, they do give you the glucose that you need to think better, to work better, to wash your dishes, to work in the garden and to do so many things. But by the time you are going to bed, you are going, I think, with a quarter tank. Just enough to keep your heart beating during the night. You are not supposed to go to bed with a full tank. You should go to bed with a quarter tank. This is why we encourage that, after 3 p.m. we should not eat again. The whole idea is to take care of your metabolic system. So that by the time you go to bed, the tank is almost empty. You just have enough fuel to keep the brain thinking, resting well, and the immune system functioning well, and whatever needs to be done, it is done well. But if you wake up in the morning and they take your sugar and they find it is so high, you're already waking up with a full tank and you haven't eaten anything. That's how at the hospital they suspect you're diabetic. Then they'll tell you, come again tomorrow before you eat. We check you again. And when they find that your sugar is high before breakfast, it's a sign that this sugar is not going inside the cells. You are not burning the glucose in your mitochondria. It is sitting in the freeway. So they give you medication to manage this sugar artificially. But unfortunately, the medication for diabetes, it was never designed to solve what is causing it. It is designed to manage it. That's why they say you should take it all the days of your life. And they give you metformin, and they give you, what is the other one? The name of the other drug?
Metformin.
There's metformin, and the other one, glucosamine. And then the last dosage is actually insulin. That's what you can get from the hospital. When they give you insulin, it is the last dosage. The moment your body reacts to that, there's nothing more that the hospital can do. Because it is artificially managed. But diabetes, is a condition that it is reversible. I think I had a patient years back. He came to my clinic, the lifestyle clinic that we were operating that time with my wife. He did not come for diabetic reasons, but because he was overweight and they needed to do an operation at the hospital, something to do with the intestines. So he had a lot of fat around the tummy. And the doctors told him that we can't operate you with this too much fat. You need to at least lose weight first, then you can do the operation. So the reason why he came to my clinic is because some people told him that, oh, if you want to lose weight, go to that lifestyle clinic. That's where they deal with these weight issues. That's where they can help you with this weight, whatever. So he came to me because he wanted to lose weight. But after finishing assessing him, I told him that, you know what, my brother, even this diabetes that you are battling with, I know you have come here because you want to lose weight, but even this diabetes that you are battling with can also disappear. But first, let's do the weight issue that you are worried about. So I told him how to lose weight naturally. And he was a man about 70 years old at that time, but he was still going strong. He retired, he was a retired guy. So I told him, you know, the power of exercise in the morning, not in the evening, the morning exercise, what it does to the metabolism when you just wake up, you drink your water, and you do some exercise. And he said, oh, that is easy for me, I'll just park my car. Because I always go to church for prayers, then I go to this place and I go to that place. What I'll do, I'll just park my car, and instead of driving, I'll be walking. So he started doing that, and his friends were feeling sorry about him. They thought he was broke. They never knew that it was actually intentional. So I also told him, you know, what to eat. I said, from now on, when you wake up in the morning, you don't have tea and bread and milk and sugar. You know, have the sorghum pap with some lentils and some vegetables. Eat your breakfast like lunch. And then after that, in the afternoon, you know, have some seeds, some nuts and some fruits. And then also you can have with some brown rice. But I selected the fruits, only the sour fruits. You know those fruits that makes your face look like a monkey when you're eating them. You know, the kiwi, the lemon, you know, the sour soup, all those fruits that are sour. They help eliminate the body fat. So I told him that you also need to get the healthy fats, you know, because the body uses the healthy fats to dissolve the bad ones. So you must take avocado, you must take the cashew nuts, and you know, in Malawi we have lots of coconuts, so I said go and get some coconut, fresh coconut, and I shared him a few ideas of what he can do with it. And I've learned in my life that when the people are ordered, they want to live more. And they get committed to anything that you advise them than the younger ones. It's always hard to convince a young person to change a lifestyle as it is to convince an old person to change the lifestyle. So I told him, you know, drink water between meals with some lemon in it and some cucumber in it to make your body more alkaline. And make sure you go to bed at around 7 p.m. because your body loses the fat 4 hours before midnight. So don't be one of those people who go to bed 10 p.m., 7 p.m. I told him it doesn't matter even if you wake up 2 a.m., doesn't matter, but 7 p.m. be in bed. Because he wanted to lose weight, he wanted to go for an operation, he was committed to it. He did it the first month, second month, third month. When he came for a checkup at the third month, I couldn't recognize him. The whole stomach fat was gone. It was just fat like mine. I couldn't even recognize him. He looked like a born again. So I said to my elder, you can go for operation. God has done wonders for you. Let us now continue to fight the diabetes. He had diabetes, he also had blood pressure. And he also had the arthritis. He was actually taking about 15 tablets a day just to stay alive. After the operation was successful, he came and then we continued working on the diabetic issue. And 3 months, I think it was 2 months down the line, the doctor stopped him taking hypertension medication because his blood pressure had stabilized. And 6 months down the line, the doctor stopped him taking diabetic medication. They told him, no, let's just observe it. And then they stopped him taking arthritic medication. By the end of the year, he could not believe that for the first time in his life, after 20 years of living on medication, he could wake up in the morning without the need to remember medication. When the hospital removed all the medications from him. And that man, he was from one of the evangelical churches, very influential elder in that evangelical church. He ended up going to his pastor, convinced his pastor that I should go and preach the new start in their Sunday church. So I went to that Sunday church, and they gave me actually the divine service. So the pastor preached only for 5 minutes from Hosea 6 verse 4, my people are perishing for lack of knowledge. And they said, most of you, my church members here, you are sick, and you are saying the pastor doesn't have the Holy Spirit. He's not performing miracles. He said, how can I perform miracles when you're eating sausages every day? And you're making yourself sick at home every day. So we have invited this man from the Adventist to teach you how to eat.
Yeah.
That's what this Sunday pastor said. We have invited this man from the Adventist church so he can teach you how to eat to the glory of God. And after I preached in that church, they took me to other 8 churches of the same church. We went to preach this new study program in 8 Sunday churches on the divine service in the Sunday churches. And every church where I was going, they were booking me into a hotel. The first time as a medical missionary to be booked into a hotel, because that Adventists have never done that. I was like, what? And at one of their church where I went to preach on the divine service, they even touched me. It was now one of like their up-class church in the city, in Lilongwe, where their upmarket people were actually worshiping. A beautiful church. As soon as I finished preaching, and it was time to get out of the church, when people were getting out of the church, every church member was getting a CD of the sermon I preached. And I could not believe it. What kind of studio do they have in this church? That I've just finished preaching, they sing a chorus, and as every church member is getting out of the church, is getting a CD of my sermon. And I wondered, are we so poor that we can't do this? Or is not just not a priority? But the point that I'm trying to say is I have seen the power of the healthy message. What the healthy message can do to a person physically, emotionally, physically, and what it can also do to the gospel and the 3 angels message. So the point I'm trying to say here is that diabetes type 2 is reversible. It is possible, whether it's triggered by stress, whether it's triggered by a dietary lifestyle, whether it is triggered by what is happening in your emotional life, less exercise, but type 2 diabetes is reversible. And by God's grace, you can regain your freedom again. But if we are not sick yet, we can lower our risk of getting the disease. Trust in God in difficult times. Don't worry too much of tomorrow or of yesterday. Believe in a God who knows tomorrow. You never knew you'd be here today, but God knew. Too much stress, too much worry can actually also mess up our metabolism. And then, as much as you can do it, eat the healthiest foods possible. I always say that when it comes to eating, you cannot always control what you can eat. When you're visiting somewhere, like in my case, and maybe also in the case of many of you, you're invited to preach there, you cannot take avocado to that church. Neither do you take a bottle of olive oil to the funeral. But you cook my food cooked with olive oil, you don't do that. You see? So this is the principle. At your home, where you have much control, eat the healthiest food possible. Then you can compromise at the funeral a little bit, not too much. Like if I go to those places wedding, I go to a church in the township, I'm preaching, there's white rice, I'll have a little bit of that. I'm not going to say, hey, what is this? I don't need white rice. Throw it away. No, I will not do anything like that. I'll have a little bit of it. I'll have the cabbage. I'll have the lentils and the beetroot. But I'll not have the meat and the chicken. Because I know this is not my lifestyle. At home I eat brown rice. It is my body. I cannot become diabetic because I had white rice at the wedding or the funeral. But if that becomes my lifestyle, then it's a problem. So you are visiting your mother-in-law and they have cooked some ewinsa, with some spinach and beetroot and butternut. Eat a small portion of it. Eat some butternut, enjoy the spinach, and leave the chicken for them. But what I'm trying to say is being a healthy reformer does not mean being fanatic. Because you may also end up pushing people away. They may not even like your message. You must not be a very difficult person to handle. That when you arrive at somebody's home, they are depressed. Oh, that Adventist, he has just landed, fallen in our house. How are we going to feed this Adventist? Find ways where you can make life easy for them. Leave the delicious food for them. They'll be happy you don't touch their beef, so they can have enough beef. They'll be happy you don't take a share in their chicken. They'll be very happy. But be moderate at the same time, but don't make it your lifestyle. When I go to workshops, some of the things that I do, organizations, they invite me to speak, when they're having workshops in Malawi. It's my principle when I go there, I don't take their refreshments, their biscuits, their coffees and everything. I'll just drink a bottle of water. Because if I say, no, it's just for now, there'll be so many nows. Because this is part of the business that I do. I am a wellness speaker. Companies, they invite me to talk about this. When they have a healthy day, they invite me to come and talk about that. Now, if I make that my lifestyle of snacking in workshops, one day I'll be a diabetic patient. I'll be the one looking for a therapist. So I have to drink water. Well, your work is a lifestyle. Your home is a lifestyle. So those places control what you eat and what you do. Once a year, when there is a wedding, If I come to your daughter's wedding and you give me a piece of that vegan cake with some refined flour, you know, I'll have a taste of it. But I don't eat cakes every day. So there are also things that in some places you can actually avoid. And there are things that, and what I do myself, for example, if I go to celebrations, like weddings, for example, I'll make sure I eat at home. Because when you go there, you can now live on salad. You can just take the salad just to socialize. You're with relatives, you know, they'll dish and everything. You take the salad, you take this, you take the watermelon, you take that. But when you go there like a hungry lion, you know, you not eat the whole day, but you find yourself at the wedding. By the time you remember you're a healthy reformer, all the bad things are in the stomach. Then you say, what have I done? Why my memory did not remind me? But the problem that, you know, you went there hungry. So eat your healthy food at home, then go to the wedding. Then it's easier for you to select what to eat. Because you're not eating because you're hungry or because you're desperate. But you are just eating to socialize with the family. So you can dish some salad while they are having their lunch for the sake of the conversation, so that you don't become the conversation. Any comment?